Hi, Algebra 2 students! Good morning, happy Thursday if you're watching this on the day that I post it. This is going to be our first section of notes for our distance learning phase that we're going to start today. If you remember, last time I saw you, we had just started our statistics unit and we went over our notes from section 11.1. So if you were absent that day or if you forgot because that was a very hectic school day, those notes are all typed up for you in our class OneNote for you to look at still. Today we're going to be talking about section 11.2, which is about statistical studies and sampling bias. So your learning intentions for today are that you will be able to understand the different types of statistical studies, and you will know what a statistical bias is and when it is present. So just like last class, there's not a ton of math going on today. We are focusing more on the vocabulary part of statistics, and I know a lot of you have signed up to take statistics with me next year. This, again, is a very, very good indication for you as to whether or not statistics is a type of math that you will like. We have lots of vocab, so let's go ahead and jump on into it. So for this short video, I wanted to talk about the three types of studies we're going to talk about in our Algebra 2 class. So the first type of study is an experiment. I'm sure most of you are very familiar with an experiment because all of you have taken science as you've been at Modern Day. So our definition that we're going to use is an experiment is a type of study that involves applying a treatment to some groups and measuring the effects of that treatment. We all, again, are probably pretty familiar with that. So my example, a doctor conducts a clinical trial of a new blood pressure medicine by prescribing it to half the patients in the study and measures the effect it has on their blood pressure. Some of you probably know in an experiment you typically have an experimental group and a control group. The control group does not receive any sort of treatment, and the experimental group is the group that receives treatment. The reason you have a control group is because you need to know if your treatment is actually doing something, so you kind of need a baseline to compare your experiment with. So that is our definition and example of an experiment, which is one of the types of studies we're going to be talking about. The next type of study we're going to look at is a sample survey. So in this type of study, a sample survey asks every member of a sample the same set of questions and records their answers. So for a sample survey, an example of that might be a newspaper polls randomly selected residents in a town about which mayoral candidate they prefer. So every member of a sample is given all of the same questions. It's kind of like a questionnaire if you've ever filled that out for someone. That would be an example of a sample survey. And then our final types of studies that we're going to talk about is an observational study. So in this type of study, you measure the observed members of the sample in such a way that they are not affected by the study. So you're not performing any treatment on them like you would in an experiment, and you're not asking them direct questions like you would in a sample survey. Instead, in an observational study, you're simply observing them. So an example of this would be grocery store workers wonder how many customers bring reusable bags to the grocery store. They have an employee stand at the checkout and count the number of people using reusable bags. So just counting how many reusable bags people bring in, that's not affecting people's shopping experience, obviously. So that is just one example of an observational study.